Thank you very much, Mitzi, for your introduction. And I'd like to thank Globe for inviting me to share our digital transformation journey, especially to my college engineering batchmate at LaSalle, Mr. Ernest Koo, for inviting me to share some of our experiences today. So I'd like to call this short talk of mine, the seven things that we in Union Bank learned from our transformation journey. When we started 4 years ago, we had one big problem in that if we were going to ask people to embark on a new and transformative journey, there's got to be a burning issue. And at that time, we looked at the Philippine environment and there was no burning issue. So we felt we had to create our own burning platform. Otherwise, people are not going to uh, be all in this journey. We knew that in many countries around the world, digital was already disrupting businesses. And it was just a matter of time before banking in the Philippines would get disrupted. But 4 years ago, the digital banking take-up was not really significant. And so the big question was, why do it now? And the obvious answer is, you want to do this because it's eventually going to come here to the Philippines while you still have the luxury of not being forced to do it. The worst time to do it is when you no longer have a choice. And 4 years ago, the banking industry was experiencing very high ROEs, business was booming, and so we actually felt that it was the best time to start. But we had to, as I said, create our own sense of urgency. So what we did was we invited the industry experts around the world, people who've already experienced disruption in their own industries, and asked them to share what it was like. So that we come up with a conclusion that if we don't do anything today, we are in danger of perishing. In fact, that was the big advice of our consultant when we asked them how we should structure our strategic initiatives moving forward. They said, digitize or perish. And that's been the rallying cry of our efforts. So that was the first learning. Create a burning platform if there is none. Today, I would imagine that for many of the institutions, they no longer need to create the burning platform because disruption is upon us. The platform in many industries is already burning. The second learning is that you need to have an anchor for your digital transformation because your people will ask, what is the end goal? And to us, the anchor was the customer. We knew that the customer behavior was changing and it was driven by new technologies, the internet, people wanting to do self-service through their mobile phones. And this was changing the way they were consuming different products. And banking was no exception. So the definition of digital transformation anchored on the customer was something like this. Customers might change the way they interface with banks in the future. In some areas or in some places, we're already talking of banking being invisible. People actually doing their banking in platforms, not conscious of how or which bank they were going to use for a particular transaction because it's embedded in the transaction, embedded in the platform. And so that's one of the scenarios that we are preparing for. So we are actually preparing for different scenarios. The first scenario is I said that if the world moves into platforms, then what is our response? So we've created UBX, which is our own fintech subsidiary, to prepare us by building our own platforms, building our capability to participate and engage in open banking. So that's our insurance in case the world moves into that direction. But if the world remains more or less the way it is today, meaning banks continue to make money by intermediating between the savers and those who need credit, we will still need to undergo transformation because the expectation of customers have changed in as far as speed of the transaction, in as far as the cost of the transaction is concerned. These are the two biggest potential threats. So to counter that, what we need to do is we need to create an organization that is the fastest among its peers in terms of generating new products and features that address the emerging needs and the changing expectations of customers. So that's what we said digital transformation will do. The third one is, and this is on hindsight, that there is really no fixed technology formula. In the beginning, we thought there was one. So we started by this transformation journey by saying we need to master the art of placing our digital systems on the cloud. We needed to learn blockchain. We needed to understand data science, big data. We needed to be familiar with AI. We needed to be familiar with robotics process automation and the like, as if there was a formula. Well, what we realized is the technology stack can change, and there is no fixed formula. For example, in the beginning, we said we needed to convert the organization into an agile organization. So that means to embrace the agile methodology. So just as we thought we had been quite good at agile, now we're already moving into DevSecOps because we're seeing the limitations of the agile methodology in as far as speed of systems and product deployment is concerned. And maybe I'll talk about that a little bit more. But that was the key learning. No fixed technology stack. The technology challenges can change. And the new technologies need to be learned. The fourth one is digital transformation is actually a culture, more of a culture transformation, because this whole effort is not going to work if people have this thinking that there are sacred cows as far as processes are concerned. And as you know, most of us in the organization grew up purely in the banking world. And you look back to best practices in the past, and if that's all you've seen, there could be a tendency for people to believe that that's the gold standard. And what has worked in the past will work again today and into the future. So the first thing that you really need to do is to build an organization that is willing to unlearn the things that used to work but may no longer work today and obviously will not work in the future. So acceptance that the environment has changed and that we need to learn new things, and having learned these new things, to again go through the process of unlearning so that we relearn and learn and relearn. And that's a constant process, and that's a big culture transformation, particularly for people who have not seen anything else other than the banking processes. That's why we ourselves borrowed a lot of practices from outside banks. We tried to study how the telcos are doing their processes. We benchmark best practices against technology companies, software companies, and in many cases, our best benchmarks have not been among banks. They have been outside the banking industry, particularly in the technology space. The fifth learning that we have, and this one was very clear after 4 or 5 years when we were already starting to be recognized as having achieved some measure of success. And that is, you need to rally around a higher purpose. And initially we were defining our purpose as simply to elevate lives and fulfill dreams. Later on, people were saying, yeah, but any bank can do that. What is the unique thing that Union Bank can contribute that we can rally around? And during the Singapore FinTech Festival, which we have been participating for the last 3 years, we saw that many of the projects that we were showcasing were actually groundbreaking and trailblazing, not just in the Philippines, but in Southeast Asia. And many of the Filipinos who visited our booth said, all of these things that you are showcasing right now can be of big help to companies in the Philippines. And thus was born the tagline, Tech Up Pilipinas. So we realized that we can make a positive contribution by helping Filipino companies tech up and be globally competitive, because that's now the name of the game. The markets are no longer purely global. Purely local. If you want to make it big, you need to go global, or at the very least regional. And to be able to compete in that space, you need to understand the technologies that are essential in the emerging global e-commerce space. And so the higher purpose now is taking up Pilipinas. The sixth one is to have a roadmap, but this one I always say, have a roadmap, but you realize that you need to navigate from point to point. On hindsight, I can give you a roadmap of how we got here because I'm looking backward. But in the beginning, there was no real roadmap. There was a map, yes, but the map just simply said we were going to move north. All right, we were pursuing digital transformation, but we did not have a clear, as in step one, step two kind of roadmap. We simply navigated from one milestone to the other. And that is the nature of digital transformation, because each journey is unique for each company. And by definition, since it is a new journey, it's very difficult to map. And there's going to be a lot of ambiguity. So you need to build an organization that embraces ambiguity. The organization has to be prepared that not everything is crystal clear, which was actually quite difficult for many of us in the banking world when we started, because, in banking, things are supposed to be very precise. We're used to having manuals for everything. And here we are now pursuing a journey where we only define the milestones, but how to get there, we need to figure out as we go along. But that is critical in transformation journey. If you're not willing to accept that the roadmap will be somehow ambiguous, then you might end up not having a roadmap. But not having a roadmap is very dangerous, because people will rally around you only if they think you know where you are going. So what I always tell people as an advice is, never mind if the map is not perfect, have a map, because people will rally around you only if you think you know, and therefore we know where we are going. Now, the last learning that I'd like to share is something that I've been talking about from the very beginning. And now that we are into the 5th year, I am more convinced. I am convinced more than ever that this was an essential ingredient in getting our people to rally behind this cause. And that is a promise that no one gets left behind. So from the very beginning, we were conscious of answering a question that we knew people would ask, but maybe they were too ashamed to ask in the beginning. And that is, what does this mean for us, the individual union bankers? So we say digital transformation will ensure that the organization survives. But how about us? the team members of Union Bank. What if you, Edwin, will be the only person left in this organization? You know, we're talking about disruption. Some people are talking of virtual banks. Does that mean we will all lose our jobs? And so from the very beginning, we said if we do this early together, we will ensure that no one gets left behind. Anyone who wants to join us in this transformation journey are going to be retooled. And well, you know, in the beginning, we weren't 100% sure that this was doable, that everyone can be actually retooled. But after looking at our experience the last 4 years, I can say that, you know, do not underestimate your organization's capacity to learn new things. The most important thing is they accept that there is a need to unlearn, and that they are willing to learn new things. And most importantly, this is not just an intellectual battle. At the end of the day, digital transformation is both a battle for the hearts and minds of the employees. And if you can, my advice to you is promise people that no one gets left behind. Thank you.